Hi everyone, I'm Jack. Welcome to the official IslesDen YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot more Islanders post-game show and podcasting content for this upcoming season, so if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. You can also find my weekly podcast on Twitter at Isles House, co-hosted by myself at IslesDen, Ethan at EthanGSN, and Rocco at Pizza Sports Guy, all on Twitter. Thank you for joining me.
Welcome in, everyone. If you're watching this, if you're watching it later, I know it's 7 p.m. East Coast time. But yeah, definitely had to do a post game tonight. Was supposed to do on the other night. Had some stuff to deal with. But wow, the New York Islanders move into first place in the Metropolitan Division via points, but that's just points. The games played are a little bit in our favor, or not in our favor, I should say. Carolina and Washington both play some games later today. And yeah, we'll get into this one. 3-2 final in the shootout. This was a memorable game to be at if you're an Islanders fan. Before the game, Pat LaFontaine gets inducted into the Team Hall of Fame, and it was one of the more emotional inductions, I would say. LaFontaine has quite the history with the team. He was part of the Stanley Cup appearing team in 1984. And he was talking about Matthew Schaefer at some points of it, his family members, just a really great tribute to a great player in team history. That was awesome to see. But going into this one, a couple storylines. Bo Horvat he didn't take anything. He just got his skate twisted up with a player the other night, and he had to really skate off the ice in a hurry, and it looked a little bit scary, like we might not be seeing Horvat for a while. But looks like we're getting more of an optimistic update. I think he'll be back from somewhere between 1 to 3 weeks, which when you saw that play, it looked like it could be the entire season. So we'll take that. So no Horvat going into tonight. Jonathan Drouin, who had missed the last, I want to say 4 or 5 games, stepped back into the lineup. Kind of perfect timing because they definitely needed something more in the top 6. Losing Horvat, who was 3rd in the NHL in goals, just came off a 2-goal game Tuesday night against Vegas. And this team, they sit at 19, 11, and 3. Without Bo Horvat, I don't know how many wins they would have this year. Any team who loses their top goal scorer, it's going to be tough. And at times today, you definitely saw that. However, let's get into the game finally. First period, right after the Pat LaFontaine Hall of Fame induction, I imagine it was probably a sellout crowd Saturday afternoon. And, these games for the Islanders have been a little bit of trouble over the last several years. They get into these afternoon games, they aren't ready to go. They kind of get walked off the ice. And, at some points today, too, a case could be made that they weren't ready, but not in the first 10 minutes. So game starts, and Sorokin, who I talked about this the other night, when the game starts and he makes an immediate good save, it kind of gets the team going in a weird way, and they seem to thrive off of that early on. So Sorokin makes a few good saves. Then there's a penalty on Tampa, and then Shabanov takes an offensive zone penalty. It's a 4-on-4. And then a couple minutes later, I forget who drew the next penalty. I know, oh no, it was Heineman who drew the next penalty, but Ryan Pulock made a great move, centered him, and the Islanders got to the man advantage at 4-on-3. And Anthony Duclair and Matthew Schaefer, a little give and go, put the Islanders up 1-0. Early on, crowd looked like it was going. Schaefer celebration, everything about it was just awesome. And he continues his Calder looking rookie season as an 18-year-old. He's been unbelievable. Another major reason this team is 19, 11, and 3. And a couple minutes later, Duclair again wins a puck in the defensive zone. Maybe he was sprung, but he carried that thing, and he carried it all the way until he found Cal Ritchie, who finished to make it 2-0 Islanders. And what a start to this game. Right after you get a Hall of Fame induction, the two biggest pieces of your future right now being Cal Ritchie and Matthew Schaefer, a combined age of 38 years old, score the first 2 goals of the game, and it's 2-0 Islanders, and you're just feeling great going into the intermission. 2-0. Tampa was starting to push back a little bit. But then we head to the second period, which I gotta say, this might have been the worst period I've seen the team play this year. There were just some penalties, and Tampa was all over them. And I'd have to imagine Tampa, after losing the first two games to the Islanders, they really did not want to go home without 2 points this afternoon. And John Cooper's yelling at the referee. There's mysterious whistles being blown. Um, Really an absurd period. Sorokin was absurd as well. He was phenomenal. They were lucky to be up 2-1 going to the third period. It felt like it just, who was unbelievable today for Tampa Bay? Darren Radish. I mean, this guy, whether it was breaking up plays in his own zone, the breakout passes, the shot that he eventually scored on. It was a Tampa Bay 5-on-3 after a Cizikas trip. Should have been a Mayfield trip, but it was a Cizikas trip. So 2-1 Tampa Bay. And yeah, we go to the third period. It was going to be tough to hold them to 2-1. And right on early in the period, off a face-off, Maxim Shabanov blows some coverage, and I think it was JJ Moser who wristed one right over Sorokin, and it was 2-2. And the rest of the third period, it's kind of always a weird feeling when you start the game up 2-0 10 minutes in, and you find yourself just praying to get a point out of the game. I remember I was at the Islanders Vegas game in Las Vegas about a month ago, and it was 2-0 Islanders in that game too. And in the third period, when Vegas tied it, they start pushing for a second, and you're like sitting there all of a sudden just hoping you get 1 point out of the game. And in both of these games, they ended up getting two. So I don't know what it is about this team. They just find ways to win, and you just got to enjoy it as a fan. Going into this season, nobody really had us first in the division at this point, or even top three if they end up in third place by the end of the night. Pretty good stuff going on Long Island. But yeah, the end of regulation. I mean, you want to talk about some heart stopping stuff. Tampa hits a goalpost, and there's another play with, I want to say, like 20 seconds left, where there's just a scramble going on in front of the net, and the puck is just sitting there, and the Sorokin eventually covers it. But it felt like that puck was sitting there for a lifetime for a Tampa Bay stick to come in and put it through, but it didn't happen. And when that buzzer sounded to go to overtime, I was pretty happy that they got a point out of the game. I thought the last 40 minutes was largely dominated by Tampa Bay, who somehow 5 out of 6 points to this point going into OT, and overtime was it was not the most nerve-wracking overtime. I feel like Tampa didn't get that many looks. If anything, the Islanders were the ones getting some. Barzell had a nice steal to gain possession. Schaefer had a few looks. Drouin set up a few chances. I thought it was really interesting that they started overtime with Casey Cizikas taking the draw. Obviously, the biggest priority is winning possession right away, but when you have Pajot sitting on the bench, I just can't say I understand that. Obviously, without Horvat, everything is going to be harder for this team. But overtime comes and goes, and they go to the shootout. And for the first time in probably years and years and years, I'm not thinking it's an automatic loss. Still thinking it's a probable loss, but automatic is not the case anymore. So Barzell shoots first for the Islanders, and he's been 0 for whatever to start this season. So I kind of felt like, all right, he's due here. He scores, and then Sorokin makes the save. Holmstrom comes up. No, I haven't mixed up. Barzell shot second, and then Braden Point tied it immediately. Holmstrom came in, did a nice move, real nice save there by Johansson. And then Sorokin comes up big, and Emil Heineman steps up once again, just like he did Tuesday, and wins the shootout. He's 3 for 3, I believe, in his career. And now the Islanders win the game 3-2, and suddenly you found yourself praying for a point just 30 minutes ago, and you look up, and Brendan Burke says that they're in first place in the Eastern Conference. Just really unbelievable. But to my main takeaways from this game are really that any time you can get a point, anytime you can get 2 points without Bo Horvat in the lineup, that's a massive win for this team. Um, when you lose a player that can kill penalties, win faceoffs whenever you need them, obviously score goals, his loss is truly going to be major for this team going forward. And, 1 to 3 weeks, you just have to pick up whatever you can to keep your head above water before he comes back, because the depth down the middle, I mean, suddenly you're asking a lot more of Cal Ritchie, who, by the way, seems to be on his way to ascension right now. He's got, I want to say, 7 points in 21 games now, but the clip at which he's scoring at in the last 15 games, 20 games, it's certainly not 21, not 20 games, but maybe 12, the last 12, 15 games, something like that. He's been scoring at a pretty good clip, and all of his points, there's one secondary assist. Other than that, they're all really nice plays by him. He's also finishing. He's just a good player, and they really need him to be. I liked how they moved him down in the lineup instead of just throwing him to Bridgeport, because they gave him a chance in the bottom six, get his feet wet a little bit, and if he can be ready to be that consistent second line center right now while Bo Horvat's out, that's going to help them win games like it did today. So huge goal from him in the first period, and that's all you can ask for from him, really. But Horvat's absence is just it's like almost lucky that it's 1 to 3 weeks, and it always sucks when your best player goes out. But the Devils are without Jack Hughes for God knows how long. The Rangers have been without Adam Fox for a few weeks and won't have him back for another few weeks. And you're looking across at Tampa, who doesn't have Vasilevsky, who doesn't have Hedman. And the Islanders have really largely been carried this season by their core players and their highest paid guys like Sorokin, Horvat, Barzell. Schaefer's not a high paid guy, but he's a guy that's stepped up as the first overall pick and just been ready to go from day one. They're getting good contributions from Ryan Pollock and Adam Pelech. But the defense today definitely struggled. And going into this season, one of my biggest feelings on why the defense would improve would be because of two things. Matthew Schaefer's arrival just going to instill an energy, and kind of like, they're welcoming in this kid who's the first overall pick. It's just going to elevate your game a little bit. They all want to be the guy that Matthew Schaefer's talking about in 20 years or 30 years when he's giving his Hall of Fame speech, because those are the types of aspirations you have for guys that are drafted first overall. So I thought it would inject a different level of focus, energy that leads to better performance. But, that's all great. But what's really helped them, in my opinion, too, is the forwards this year with the additions of Drouin, Heineman, Shabanov, Ritchie. All these guys are actually able to have shifts in the offensive zone that they have possession, and they're not getting hemmed in like they were in previous years because the forwards are a little bit more capable. So suddenly you lose your best forward, you're going to be hemmed in a little bit and forced to defend a little bit more. So today, maybe not their greatest performance. I think Sorokin covered up for a whole lot today, and I'm just going to check his goals saved above expected in this game. The goal saved above expected is 1.8. So that's basically 2 goals that Sorokin saved. And that's just a 5-on-5. He was just brilliant today. And to touch on him a little bit, since Connor Hellebuck went down, I was thinking, like, you're looking at the numbers right now. Sorokin is number one in every category for guys that have started since the beginning of the season. Minnesota has this kid that's come on, and he's won like a ridiculous amount of games in a row. His first one was against the Islanders, of course, but he's obviously a really hot goalie. The Great Wall of Minnesota, they call him. Yeah, so starting to definitely be a serious Vezina contender early in the season, but today was the first day where, you sit back and you're just realizing he literally won this game for them. And, performances like that from Sorokin, you're going to start hearing some stuff. I mean, a stat came out that I got to find. There was this stat where he had allowed like there were like 16, 17 high danger chances, and he stopped. He obviously only let in 3 goals to Tampa Bay over the last 3 games after they threw a ridiculous amount of shot attempts at him, and it's starting to get league wide attention now. The Islanders have a 63% steal percentage from their goalies. That ranks number one in the league, and that's per Sport Logic. They're an analytics group that is actually used by NHL teams. They're more of a private data model, and they released that stat today that the Islanders goalies have stolen 63% of the team wins this season. And what a steal is, it's when there's more goals saved above expected than something else. I don't know the exact metric, but it proves to be one that's kind of accurate because today was absolutely a steal. And my final takeaway from it is Sorokin has more games like that. You're going to start to hear some heart consideration because he put the team on his back today. And with the narratives around the league, with the Islanders defense, the Islanders team in general wasn't supposed to be good this year. And you take a look at his numbers, he'll certainly get some attention there. So phenomenal from him. Not to mention his backup, David Riddick, has been way better than anyone thought he would be this season. So shout out to the goalies. This team is really getting quality goaltending, and this is what happens when you do, and you have just enough to push you over the top. So massive win today. Um, Something that I wanted to touch on, and I'm curious in the comments here. So during this game, watching Sorokin dominate, I'm thinking about the loss of Bo Horvat, how that's affecting the team. I'm watching Matthew Schaefer score a goal. I'm watching Barzell do everything he can to set guys up. And this was my question. I said it on Twitter, and it was a barbershop poll, like, just casual conversation. Who's the best player on the team? And I put 4 options. I put Bo Horvat, Ilya Sorokin, Matthew Barzell, and Matthew Schaefer. In 123 votes so far, we have Bo Horvat at 34.1, Ilya Sorokin at 24.4, Matthew Barzell at 7.3, and Matthew Schaefer at 34.1. So it's actually tied on 123 votes between Schaefer and Horvat, with Sorokin trailing by a little bit and Barzell a little bit behind the rest of everybody else. When you have a star up front, a star on the blue line, and a star in net, that usually means pretty good things for your team. And it's just pretty crazy to think about where this team was a year ago, just scratching, clawing to win games in the ugliest ways possible. And now, now you have all these studs all over the ice. You have the youth. And one player I just wanted to mention today, Anthony Duclair. Recently, I would say a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, he was kind of sent to the fourth line. And getting sent to the fourth line could do a lot of things for you as a player. It could be a confidence hit. You might get angry with your head coach, and just got to give him props for how he's responded, because all he did since he got there, he actually scored a goal on the fourth line. He worked and worked and was truly effective, kind of in some ways you wouldn't expect him to be. Good stick defensively, good puck carrier, and now he's starting to get rewarded with goals, assists, and points, and he looks great next to Cal Ritchie. I wouldn't break that apart. So this is the best I think I've seen Duclair look in an Islanders uniform. First 5 games last year, he looked pretty good, but he had that groin pull, and his season was kind of derailed from there. And, took him a little bit to get his feet wet this season. But Anthony Duclair contributing is massive with Bo Horvat out. They need every single point that they can get from these forwards. And he was huge today with 2 points in the first period. So good for him. Great to see him playing so well. I'm just going to go through some analytical data on the game today. So at 5-on-5 with positive expected goals percentages were the Heineman, Drouin, and Barzell line. I like the philosophy behind that line a little bit more, because when it was Drouin, Barzell, and I can't remember who the third one was about a month ago. It might have been Shabanov. It was Holmstrom. Yeah. So the reason I like the switch a little bit, Heineman has shown that he can be a pure finisher. Crazy. We thought we were getting a fourth liner, but Heineman can finish. And when you have creators like Barzell and Drouin who can find you, who could pass the puck at a very high level in this league, I like the setup with Emil Heineman, and I expect that to work a little bit better than it did with Simon Holmstrom. So, not for that line when Horvat returns. I'd rather Drouin play with Horvat and Heineman. But for now, I think that works. So I agree with that one. I also agree with putting Pajot and Holmstrom back together. That they're just a duo that works. Anders Lee on that line too. That's one of their best lines analytically of the season. I'm honestly not sure why we ever got away from it, but I'll take it. The fourth line, McLean, Cizikas, and Gatcomb. Thought they struggled a little bit today, but for the most part held their own. McLean had a good chance to score. They actually graded positively also. The only line that didn't was ironically the Duclair Richie Shabanov line. And one thing I wanted to highlight, I thought that this was Maxim Shabanov's worst game as a pro hockey player in the NHL. Just the blown coverage on Moser's goal, the penalty while they were on the power play. He didn't have it today, and it happens. It's an 82 game season. You go with the ebbs and flows, but he got benched. He didn't get benched. He got moved to the third line in Florida last Sunday after a turnover led to a Panthers goal. So, Patrick Waugh's got a short leash with some of these guys. I'm curious to see how he handles some of Shabanov's mistakes. But they're going to happen. It's his first year in the league, so I would preach patience there and hope for a good response. I also would use Shabanov in some different situations. 3-on-3 shootout. I feel like with the extra space on the ice, that's what fits his skill set the most. So while he struggled, maybe a little bit, maybe some different opportunities for him can help him out. So definitely still got all the faith in the world in the kid. I think he's got some skill that you can't teach, and he's going to be a good player. But he's going to go through it. It's his first year in the NHL. Thought Drouin looked strong today, coming back. He set up a few plays. He just got an instinct and a natural ability to know what to do with the puck. So liked what I saw from him. Defensively, I didn't love the game so much overall. I thought there were a few scenarios though where they couldn't get out of their zone until Schaefer finally got it out, and he was able to break the puck break the puck all the way up the ice. So love what you see from Schaefer, and without him, I don't know how they're getting out of their zone sometimes. So thank God for those lottery balls. As for the defensive pairs, which they did switch at one point today, they put Pelech back with Polak, and then they moved D'Angelo with Schaefer, which has kind of been a little bit of a secret weapon for them. D'Angelo and Schaefer have been pretty electric when they're actually paired together. They just have insane puck moving ability. Offensively, they're pretty good together. So that's something that I don't know if I want it for a full 60 minutes, but at times they are a very good pair. All of them didn't grade so well today. But this is one of our solo post games, so I'm going to get into the comments a little bit earlier, and let's see what you guys are thinking. Bean Burrito Enjoyer 1 does not simply trade a player like the proctologist. The proctologist, the ass man, Emil Heineman, Bean Burrito Enjoyer is referring to. I mean, this kid came over. We were thinking we were getting a fourth liner, and he's already broken his career high in goals. And, he only has 1 point or 1 goal in his last 12, but no one's going to complain when you're scoring two shootout game-winning goals in the same week. So that's kind of a good thing. While he's cooled off, you're still getting something from him. And this trade just looks great for the Islanders because I don't know if Noah Dobson's playing so great. And not to mention, the trade isn't a 1-for-1. They actually have 2 prospects that they took in the first round that are overseas right now. One of them is scoring at a ridiculous clip in the OHL. The other is ascending over in Sweden. That's Victor Eklund. So I don't know if you should trade a player like the proctologist. Brock Williams, chat, we are back. Yeah, we're back like we never left. First place in the Metropolitan in December. Nobody saw this coming. I thought they'd be a sneaky good playoff contender, but as the season's gone on, the capability defensively and some of those improvements there, you just simply couldn't project. Plus the fact you have a goalie playing at a Vezina level, and I would say Sorokin was due for a season like this. He had a fantastic season in 2023. And then the next season, goaltenders, there's insane variance in this position. He had an off year, and then 2024-25, he was coming off back surgery, but you still saw flashes of the guy from 2023. So it was still there. Um, and going into this season, he got a healthy offseason. He has a backup goalie that doesn't force him to play every night. So the fact you can actually balance the net a little bit, it's working wonders for him. And we're getting the best out of him. And that is why I think we are back. What a win. You think the Islanders can keep winning without Horvat? Um, in my opinion, if they can go 500, and I don't care how that looks, whether it's some overtime losses where you still get a point, that's a success. You just don't want to be like 2-7 or 3-8 without him. You want to keep your head above water for now. So when he comes back, he's ready to go. And this team's going to get an Olympic break, and that's going to be really good for a veteran team like the Islanders and also a young team because although Richie and Schaefer and Shabanov, these guys are young, and Heineman, there's a fatigue and a level that sets in when you get that break. It's not normal to have that in the middle of an 82 game season. This is their first time going through the entire grind. So that will definitely help them out that'll give them a big lift coming back. That wasn't the question though. Can they win without Horvat? The way they played today will be unsustainable. They need Barzell to take a step, which I thought he did today. He was all over the place. He could have drawn a few more penalties. He almost willed himself to a goal in the third period, dancing through Jake Gensel. More from that from Barzell, Sorokin stepping up. They just need guys to step up in this time, and they got it today. Richie and Schaefer adding goals, Sorokin playing out of his mind. The blueprint is going to be ugly. It's not always going to be what it was against Vegas, where they potting 4 goals, winning in the shootout, getting great. Like it's going to be games like this against better teams where the ice is a little bit tilted, and there's not much you can really complain about because when you lose your number one center, and he's truly playing like a league-wide number one center, it's going to do that to you. So I think that they'll need guys to step up to win without Horvat, but it's going to be tough. And my goal for it, just leave the stretch with your head above water and at 500 in the games that he's out. Justin Panic 43. Shabanov had a very bad game. I want Siplikov. Listen, nobody wants Siplikov more than me, but I won't be a hypocrite. I don't like when young players have bad games or they make a bad play and we bench them and scratch them. I'm a big believer in confidence, learning by mistake. So I don't know if I want to press box a guy whose main reason for being here is due to creativity, due to skill. I want him to play free out there. I don't want him to think I'm a mistake away from getting scratched again. So I do want Siplikov in the lineup. I just don't think it would be for him. Listen, the fourth line's been a nice story so far, but is it sustainable? I mean, I don't know. That's my question. There are things you can do to fit Siplikov in this lineup, in my opinion, and I think those actions should be taken against different players, not one that you brought over for a 1-year tryout to just see what he's got. I think you got to live with. I think you got to live with his mistakes a little bit for now. But if it continues for a couple of games here, I absolutely agree with you. But this to me was like a standout bad game for him. So I probably give him a break on this one. Claire Hoggle, 55. Huge goal by Barzell in the shootout. Next shootout, he should switch it up like a backhand or something. Yeah, he needed that one. He was 0 for whatever. But with a guy like Barzell, you never worry about his confidence. He is definitely very confident out there, and it was nice to see him finally get one today. He had a big smile going to the bench, and you could tell the bench was happy. He needed it, and they needed every single shootout goal, every goal, both goals they scored in the first, every last Sorokin save, everything to win that game. So that's an example of Barzell stepping up today when he had to, in Horvat's absence, and a huge reason the Islanders got the 2 points. And I agree with you. Switching up your move is definitely good because Holmstrom has that has that move where he goes to the back end of the forehand really smooth. But I think goaltenders are starting to catch on a little bit. Johansson was ready for it today. You do not trade a player like Emil Heineman, point blank, period. The Great Wall of St. Paul, right. Thank you, President Lee, for that one. It didn't sound right the way I was saying it. Thankful this is not a contract year for Sorokin. Yeah. I mean, with the salary cap going up, you take a look at the Islanders' books and all of their contracts, and a team that has been cap strapped for so many years. You suddenly take a look back now that the cap's going up and the way these players are playing with some different personnel and some different coaching, and you're like, it's not so bad anymore. So the Islanders are getting all of their worth out of guys like Sorokin, Horvat, even Pollock and Pellick. So that's amazing to see. And honestly, President Lee, I am just as happy as you are that it's not a contract year. Thoughts on flipping Drouin and Shabanov, Barzy with Heineman and Shabanov, and Pajot with Lee and Holmstrom, and then Richie with Drouin and Duclair. I like Richie with Drouin and Duclair better than Holmstrom. So I could see that working. Duclair would definitely need to have that finishing touch going because once again, those are two guys that are mainly going to distribute. But what I like about Richie is he can do a little bit of both. He had a beautiful shot today. Barzell with Heineman and Shabanov, I like that too. Yeah, Jeremy, I'm fully with these lines here. I think they all kind of fit these guys' skill sets. State of Survival, harsh. I don't know what I was harsh about. Gonna need you to dive in on that one. Shabanov needs some time with the director of player development if the slide continues. Jeremy, you're a loyal listener. The director of player development is JG Pajot. For those new to the show, that's what I call him because every young player that's struggling, the coach Patrick Waugh, whether it was freaking Lane Lambert, they throw everybody next to Pajot. So he just makes everybody around him better, and that's one of the major reasons why they get good play out of these younger guys. It's because they could lean on Pajot and win their minutes with him, and he just plays a simple game, and it translates really well with the young guys around him. He makes Holmstrom better. He's going to make Shabanov better when they put him with him. You'll see. It's just he's one of the more underrated players on this team, and obviously the deadline's coming around this year. He's definitely a guy you'll see all over the trade lists like you have over the last several years. But I don't know. I wouldn't rule out that he's sticking around. Choppy's word, Islanders suck. Go Rangers. Yeah, I don't know about that one. State of Survival. I don't think people realize how much depth this team has. To have 3 rookies just step in and continue like nothing happened. We can go through tons of injuries before we even start to slip. So when the Islanders lost Palmieri, Romanov, and they lost somebody and Jonathan Drouin, I was thinking, okay, like those guys, when you compare them to like a Jack Hughes and an Adam Fox and Vasilevsky for other teams that have injuries, I'm thinking, okay, they have the depth to withstand this. And even right now, they have Maxim Siplikov, who had like 35 points at 5-on-5 last year in the press box. However, depth is great, but Bo Horvat is playing at a level that nobody else is up front. So there's going to be a little bit of slippage from a goal scoring perspective, but I do agree with you largely that the depth on this team is pretty underrated. They have a ton of NHL forwards, and they could really withstand a lot up front. Defensively, I don't know about that. Mitchell's come in and played pretty well. But he's also look at who he's replacing. Romanov struggled really early on in the season, and he really, really struggled. So getting competent minutes out of that position has really helped balance all of the defensive pairs. So I think it just depends on who gets hurt, but you're not wrong. The depth up front has really shown to start this season. Jeremy, if Aitchison's game equates to the NHL level in a similar style of play, do we have Niedermeyer, Steven set up with Schaefer and Aitchison? Oh, I don't know. like I don't want to get there with guys like Niedermeyer, Stevens. These are some serious guys that we're talking about here. And Aitchison, while he's played great in the OHL, I'm not a huge prospect watcher, development guy. I don't know how these guys project. So I'll need to see him with some NHL action. That's why I'm a little bit higher on Isaiah George than a lot of people, just because he came up in the NHL and actually showed some quality minutes. So I'm excited for him to get a look. As far as Aitchison's ceiling, I'm not. I don't know if I'm qualified to have that conversation yet. Isles lose tonight. No, 3-2 win in a shootout. Jeremy, Isles tied for fifth in PK. What a drastic change from last year. Sorokin is probably a large component of this turnaround. Need the power play to keep progressing. Absolutely. This penalty kill being a top 5 unit in the NHL, it's things like that that flip a team in the standings overnight. They were due for some positive regression because when you're last in the NHL the way they were, there's just going to be improvement given a new coaching staff. Well, you'd have to think there will be. But they're getting the most out of the personnel. And Sorokin, in my opinion, has been their best penalty killer. I mean, the Lightning had a ridiculous amount of chances today, and it took them until there was 4 seconds left of their 5-on-3 to finally get one by him. So I'm fully with you there. Jets rule MJ. Schaefer has brought life to this team. I think the country club mentality seems to be dead and gone. Yeah. So my take on this to start the season is everyone calls it a country club, right? And that's fine. It's not really no professional sports team is ever actually going to be a country club. The way I looked at it, these guys are all really good friends, obviously. They've been playing for the same team for a while, a lot of these veterans. And sure, you saw some slippage in their game. But I don't know. I thought things at the end of last season got a little bit stale. You're fighting for the 8th seed for the 3rd year in a row. You're just not a top team in the NHL. You don't know how high the ceiling is. And I think some of these guys like Pollock, Pellick, even Mayfield, mentally maybe just didn't have the same spirit and fight that they once did. And you just saw slippage in their play. When they got Schaefer, I'm thinking this is going to inject a ton of life and exactly what you're saying. And I do think in a way the friendship and the country club is alive, but instead of being comfortable and getting the contract extensions, they are more focused on playing amazing hockey and they want to be a part of helping this kid develop. I mean, you see it behind the scenes in the show the team releases. You have Scott Mayfield asking the military veteran about how he should handle playing with a guy like Schaefer, even if he's better than him, which was very showed a lot of humility there. But yeah, it's just a guy that has brought so much life, and it's not even just about life; it's about production too. He's been unbelievable. Thanks for the show and your commentary, Jack. Of course. If we are top 3 in the Metro, we keep JGP and resign. He helps develop these young guys more than anyone else on the team. I'm fully with you. He has just shown a different type of value in terms of what they get out of their younger players. And I don't know what it is with him specifically. It's pretty rare where you can just throw anyone with this guy. He's a more rare player than I think I gave him credit for before this season. So I agree with you here. I think he's got some tremendous value internally. And if this team continues to win games, why not keep him around? Trade JGP, then sign him back in the offseason. He can net a decent return if he keeps going. Yeah, I can't say I'm opposed to a situation like that, but I think more of Lee for that situation because we were just talking about the forward depth up front and the forward depth, like you can replace that. But with Anders Lee, I just don't know if he provides the same level of value in terms of like helping your younger guys develop the way Pajot does. And he'll want to come back in the offseason. So my takeaway from this is Lee is your guy for that situation. Not so much Pajot because he's such a key contributor to penalty killing, face-offs, everything like that. One last thought here. Aitchison is going to bring all kinds of life to the Isles. Yzerman too. Yeah, Yzerman could also come in this season at the end of his college season and sign a quick deal. If they're a playoff team, he could be playing in the playoffs, which would be awesome. So wouldn't sleep on that possibility. Completely agree with you. And yeah, we'll see where we go from here. The Islanders now next. When do they play next? I believe it's on Tuesday. They are in Detroit, and then they host the league worst Vancouver Canucks. Then they head to Buffalo on Thursday. Or no, they play Vancouver on Friday, and then they go to Buffalo Saturday. So schedule lightens up a little bit this week, but I don't understand this team. They went 0-6 with in terms of points against the Boston Bruins and went 6-0 versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. They also don't have Horvat now, so who really knows what to expect? But I would just say enjoy the ride. No one saw this coming. And thank you guys for tuning into this stream. Lots of fun and have a great rest of your weekends.